Maria had always been drawn to ancient places, but standing before the crumbling walls of Urquhart Castle, she felt something deeper than her usual tourist curiosity. The Scottish mist clung to the ruins like ghostly fingers, and Loch Ness stretched endlessly beyond, its dark waters reflecting the brooding sky. "Just a small piece," she whispered to herself, glancing around the scattered stones. The tour group had moved on, their voices fading as they headed toward the visitor centre. Maria knelt beside a weathered fragment of sandstone, no larger than her palm, that had clearly broken away from the castle wall centuries ago. The moment her fingers closed around it, a chill ran through her that had nothing to do with the Highland air. For just an instant she could have sworn she heard the distant sound of clashing steel and men's voices shouting in an ancient tongue. But the sensation passed, and she slipped the stone into her jacket pocket, telling herself it was just her imagination running wild in such an atmospheric place. The flight back to Amsterdam was uneventful, but that night in her flat, Maria's dreams were anything but peaceful. She found herself walking through torchlit corridors of stone, the acrid smell of smoke filling her nostrils. Armoured figures moved in the shadows, their faces obscured, but their intent unmistakable. They were searching for something or someone. She woke with a start, her heart pounding. The digital clock read 3:17 a.m., and her flat felt unnaturally cold despite the mild weather outside. As she reached for her robe, her hand brushed against the stone she'd left on her nightstand. It was warm to the touch, almost pulsing like a heartbeat. The dreams came every night after that, growing more vivid and disturbing. Maria began to see faces in the shadows, a woman in medieval dress, her eyes filled with desperate sorrow, a young man in armour, reaching out as if pleading for help. During the day, she found herself distracted at work, jumping at sudden sounds and feeling constantly watched. By the end of the week, Maria's rational mind was at war with something deeper and more primal. She researched Urquhart Castle online, diving into its bloody history of sieges and betrayals, of families torn apart by clan warfare and political intrigue. The more she read, the more the faces in her dreams began to make sense. The woman was Lady Morag Grant, who had thrown herself from the castle walls rather than surrender to enemy forces in 1689. The young man was her son, Duncan, who had died defending the gate against overwhelming odds. They were the last of their line to call Urquhart home, and they had died protecting something precious hidden within the castle's stones. On the 10th night, Maria didn't dream at all. Instead, she woke to find Lady Morag standing at the foot of her bed, translucent but unmistakably real. The ghostly figure raised one pale hand and pointed at the stone on the nightstand. "You've taken what wasn't yours to take," Lady Morag's voice whispered like wind through ruins. "That stone holds the last of our clan's blood, spilled in defence of our home. It cannae rest in foreign soil." Maria's mouth went dry. I didn't know. I'll send it back, I promise." "Sending will nae suffice," the ghost replied, her form flickering like candlelight. "You must return it yourself, to the very spot where it lay. Only then can we find peace, and only then will you be free of our sorrow." The apparition faded, but her words lingered in the air like an echo. Maria knew with absolute certainty that she would find no peace until she honoured the ghost's request. 2 weeks later, Maria stood once again before Urquhart Castle, the stone clutched tightly in her hand. The short flight from Amsterdam had given her time to reflect on the strange turn her life had taken. The other tourists seemed oblivious to the weight of history surrounding them, but Maria could feel the presence of those who had lived and died within these walls. She made her way to the exact spot where she'd found the fragment, kneeling among the ancient stones as she had before. As she placed the stone back on the ground, the oppressive feeling that had haunted her for weeks began to lift. The Highland wind seemed to sigh with relief, and for just a moment she glimpsed Lady Morag and her son standing together by the castle's ruined walls. The ghost woman nodded once, a gesture of gratitude and farewell, before both figures dissolved into mist. Maria remained kneeling for several minutes, feeling the last of the supernatural weight leave her shoulders. When she finally stood, the castle felt different, still ancient and mysterious, but no longer oppressive. She had learned her lesson about taking pieces of history that weren't meant to be moved. As she walked back towards the visitor centre, Maria couldn't help but smile at the irony. She'd come to Scotland looking for a glimpse of the legendary Loch Ness monster, but instead she'd encountered something far more real and infinitely more human: the enduring power of love, loss, and the unbreakable bonds that tie spirits to the places they called home. The stone remained where she'd placed it, just another fragment among thousands, but now it rested in peace, carrying the blessings of those who had shed their blood to protect it centuries before.